Colville is Edward, the Black Prince of Wales, and future King of England.
Well, he's in disguise like me, so he can compete.
He has never met an enemy without victory. He has never attacked a town he could not defeat.
One of the most beloved medieval movies almost starred completely different actors. Some of its funniest moments happened by accident, while one major Hollywood studio secretly created fake reviews to promote it. And a sequel involving pirates, treasure maps, and kidnapped royalty nearly became reality. Today, we're uncovering 20 unbelievable facts behind A Knight's Tale. From casting battles and on-set accidents to hidden historical inspirations and bizarre production decisions, these stories reveal how a movie that broke every rule somehow became a fan favorite. Number 20. The sequel that almost sailed. Most fans know A Knight's Tale as a complete story, but a sequel almost happened. Soon after the original film finished production, writer-director Brian Helgeland developed an entirely new adventure that would have moved far beyond jousting and tournaments into pirates, treasure, and high seas action. The story focused on Adhemar, who would return as the main antagonist. Instead of fading away after the first film, he would kidnap Jocelyn, forcing William and his companions on a rescue mission. Their journey would take them toward Constantinople, expanding the world far beyond medieval Europe. The concept became even more unusual from there. Pirates were set to play a major role, and William's group would be captured and drawn into dangerous situations. One version of the idea even included a prisoner with a treasure map tattooed on his back, turning the plot into a medieval treasure hunt. Despite Helgeland's enthusiasm, Sony chose not to continue with the sequel after the first film's box office performance. The idea was shelved for years. Later, Helgeland tried to revive it at Netflix, but the project was again rejected. As a result, one of Hollywood's most unusual what-if sequels never left development. William Thatcher's next adventure was planned to sail into pirate territory, but it never made it out of the harbor. Ironically, one of the film's biggest historical inspirations was already hidden inside the original movie. Number 19. The real Ulrich von Liechtenstein. One of the cleverest details in A Knight's Tale is that William Thatcher's fake noble identity wasn't entirely made up. The name Ulrich von Liechtenstein, which William uses to compete in tournaments, was inspired by a real historical figure who lived centuries earlier. The real Ulrich von Liechtenstein was a 13th-century Austrian knight, poet, and nobleman known for his dramatic personality and love of spectacle. Unlike many of his peers, he treated tournaments like performances, carefully crafting his public image and embracing attention. One of his most famous exploits involved traveling across Europe dressed as Venus, the Roman goddess of love, while challenging other knights to jousts. The elaborate stunt made him a legendary and colorful figure in medieval history. That same idea of reinvention connects directly to the film's story. In A Knight's Tale, William adopts the name Ulrich von Liechtenstein to enter competitions reserved for nobles, building a new identity to change his fate. While the film takes major creative liberties, the concept of a knight using performance and persona has real historical roots. The timelines don't match, and the movie isn't telling Ulrich's actual life story. Instead, it borrows his name and theatrical spirit to ground its fictional hero in history. It's a small detail, but it adds a surprising layer of authenticity to the film. Number 18. The star Sony didn't want. Today, it is hard to imagine anyone other than Heath Ledger playing William Thatcher in A Knight's Tale. His charm, humor, and emotional depth defined the character. But before Ledger was cast, Sony Pictures originally wanted Paul Walker for the role. At the time, Walker was seen as a rising star with strong commercial appeal, and studio executives considered him a safe, marketable choice for a major film. On paper, the decision made sense. Director Brian Helgeland, however, felt differently. He believed Walker's energy was too modern for the tone he wanted, even for a film that mixed medieval settings with contemporary style. To him, Walker felt more suited to a present-day action film than a romantic, adventurous knight. Helgeland continued searching and eventually turned to Heath Ledger, who was best known for 10 Things I Hate About You. Compared to established names, Ledger was a risk, talented but not yet a proven box office lead. The gamble worked. Ledger brought warmth, vulnerability, and charisma to William Thatcher, creating a performance audiences immediately connected with. It became one of the film's strongest elements and helped turn it into a cult favorite. Looking back, the choice feels obvious, but at the time it required pushing against studio expectations. Without that decision, the film, and Ledger's career, could have taken a very different path. Number 17. The Airport Restaurant Audition. Most major movie roles are won through formal auditions and screen tests, but Heath Ledger's casting as William Thatcher in A Knight's Tale happened in a far less conventional way. One of the key moments took place inside an airport restaurant during a layover. At the time, Ledger was flying home to Australia after working on The Patriot. During a long stop in Los Angeles, he happened to meet director Brian Helgeland, who was still searching for his lead actor. What started as a casual conversation quickly turned memorable. Helgeland noticed Ledger carrying a long tube and asked about it. Instead of giving a simple answer, Ledger pulled out a didgeridoo and began playing it in the middle of the restaurant. The unexpected performance immediately drew attention as travelers stopped to watch. For Helgeland, the moment stood out. Ledger's confidence, spontaneity, and willingness to be completely unguarded reflected the exact energy the director wanted for a film that blended medieval history with a modern tone. Although it wasn't a formal audition, the encounter helped convince Helgeland he had found his William Thatcher. Ledger's personality matched the film's unusual spirit before filming even began. It stands as one of Hollywood's most unusual casting stories, where a chance airport encounter and a didgeridoo helped shape a future cult classic. Number 16. Paul Bettany's casting fight. Paul Bettany's performance as Geoffrey Chaucer became one of the most memorable parts of A Knight's Tale. His fast-talking speeches, confidence, and chaotic energy helped define the film's tone. But Bettany almost didn't get the role at all, and his casting caused a major clash between Sony Pictures and director Brian Helgeland. The studio reportedly preferred Hugh Grant, who was already a well-known star with strong box office appeal. From their perspective, Grant was a safer, more marketable choice for such a prominent comedic role. Helgeland strongly disagreed. He believed Bettany had the exact strange, unpredictable energy needed for Chaucer, who was not meant to be a polished romantic lead, but an eccentric scene stealer who could instantly command attention. The disagreement became serious enough that Helgeland reportedly threatened to leave the project if Bettany wasn't cast. It was a bold risk, especially since Bettany was far less established than Grant at the time. Eventually, the studio backed down and allowed Bettany to take the role. The decision proved crucial. His performance became a fan favorite and helped launch his Hollywood career, giving Chaucer a larger-than-life personality that shaped many of the film's funniest moments. Looking back, it's hard to imagine anyone else delivering those scenes with the same energy. The fight over casting ultimately proved why Helgeland was right. Number 15. The home video that changed everything. Winning over the director was one thing. Winning over the studio was another. Even after Brian Helgeland was convinced that Paul Bettany was perfect as Geoffrey Chaucer in A Knight's Tale, Sony executives weren't sold. Their main concern was that Bettany didn't seem funny enough for such a major comedic role. Chaucer was loud, eccentric, and responsible for many of the film's biggest laughs, and the studio doubted Bettany could fully deliver that energy. Instead of continuing the debate, Helgeland made an unusual move. He invited Bettany to his home and filmed a homemade screen test using a basic camera. They shot a scene where Chaucer dramatically pretends to remove a thorn from his foot and then bites it out in exaggerated fashion. The footage was simple and unpolished, but it captured something the formal auditions hadn't. Bettany showed a strange, unpredictable charm that made even small actions feel funny and alive. The next day, Helgeland presented the video to Sony executives. This time, the reaction changed completely. The room reportedly laughed throughout the clip, finally seeing the character as Helgeland had imagined him. That informal test secured the role. Bettany was approved soon after, and one of the film's most memorable performances was born not from a polished audition, but a quick homemade video that captured Chaucer's chaotic spirit perfectly. Number 14. Drew Carey almost joined the movie. When fans think of A Knight's Tale, they usually picture Heath Ledger, Paul Bettany, and Rufus Sewell. But at one point, Sony Pictures considered a very different idea for Geoffrey Chaucer. Before Paul Bettany was cast, the studio reportedly looked at comedian Drew Carey for the role. At the time, Carey was hugely popular thanks to The Drew Carey Show and Whose Line Is It Anyway? From the studio's perspective, he brought strong name recognition and proven comedic timing, which seemed like a good fit for Chaucer's humorous role. Director Brian Helgeland disagreed. He didn't question Carey's talent, but he worried audiences would immediately associate him with modern television rather than the film's medieval world. Even though the movie blended historical settings with modern humor, Helgeland still wanted viewers to stay immersed in the story rather than feel like they were watching a sketch comedy crossover. He pushed for a lesser-known actor instead, convincing Sony to move away from the idea. The studio continued searching and eventually cast Paul Bettany. The choice proved important. Bettany gave Chaucer a strange, unpredictable charm that fit the tone perfectly. While Drew Carey remains an interesting what if, it's hard to imagine the film working the same way with a more recognizable sitcom star in the role. Number 13. Daniel Craig's near miss. Years before he became one of the most famous James Bond actors, Daniel Craig came close to appearing in A Knight's Tale. He auditioned for the role of Count Adhemar, the arrogant nobleman and main rival to William Thatcher. At the time, Craig was still building his career and not yet a global star. Director Brian Helgeland later said Craig delivered a strong audition, showing the intensity, confidence, and authority needed for the villain. He clearly impressed the filmmakers. However, a practical issue came up during casting. Heath Ledger had already been chosen as William Thatcher, and the two actors had similar physical features, including light-colored hair. The team worried that audiences might struggle to tell the hero and villain apart in key scenes. They wanted a clearer visual contrast between the characters. Because of that, the role ultimately went to Rufus Sewell, whose darker look created a stronger distinction from Ledger. Sewell also brought a cold, controlled menace that made Adhemar feel more threatening on screen. The decision worked well for the film, but it is still interesting to imagine Craig in the role. Just a few years later, he would become James Bond and one of the biggest stars in the world. Number 12. The villain who refused to quit. Sometimes the role that changes an actor's career begins long before the actual casting process. For Rufus Sewell, his path to playing Count Adhemar in A Knight's Tale started years earlier during a completely different audition with Brian Helgeland. Sewell was originally reading for a hero role, but halfway through the process, he became more interested in the villain. Even though that antagonist part had reportedly already been given to someone else, he asked if he could read for it anyway. Most actors would have moved on, but Sewell insisted. He performed the villain's scenes with intensity and confidence, delivering a version of the character so compelling that it immediately stood out. Even though the casting decision was already made, Helgeland remembered the performance. Sewell brought a mix of menace, control, and presence that stuck with the director long after the audition ended. Years later, when Helgeland began casting A Knight's Tale, he recalled that moment. Instead of searching widely, he reached out to Sewell. The result was a perfect fit. Sewell's Adhemar became arrogant, intelligent, and quietly cruel, giving William Thatcher a rival who felt genuinely dangerous rather than one-dimensional. Their scenes together gained tension because of that balance. In the end, Sewell's persistence paid off. A role he wasn't cast in at the time eventually led to one of the defining performances of his career. Number 11. The Crowd That Didn't Understand English. One of the funniest moments in A Knight's Tale almost failed for a simple reason nobody expected. While filming in the Czech Republic, the production used large groups of local extras to fill out the tournament crowds. The issue was that many of them didn't speak English, which became a problem during Geoffrey Chaucer's big introduction scene. In the scene, Paul Bettany's Chaucer delivers an energetic, over-the-top speech meant to excite the crowd and trigger loud cheers, but instead of applause, he got silence. The extras just stood there, unsure of what was happening or when they were supposed to react. The awkward pause spread across the set, and even Bettany seemed thrown off. Heath Ledger's confused reaction was reportedly genuine. Then, Mark Addy, playing Roland, stepped in. He suddenly let out a loud, enthusiastic cheer, breaking the silence. That simple moment gave the extras a clear cue, and the entire crowd immediately followed, erupting into cheers as intended. Rather than reshooting, the filmmakers kept the take. The spontaneous fix fit the film's playful tone and added unexpected authenticity. Afterward, the crew used cue cards to guide crowd reactions more clearly. What could have been a failed scene instead became a perfect example of quick thinking, saving the moment. Language wasn't the only unexpected problem hiding in plain sight. Number 10. The Nike Joke. Nobody expected. One of the cleverest visual jokes in A Knight's Tale is so subtle that many viewers miss it entirely. As Kate the blacksmith upgrades William's armor, she adds a personal maker's mark to the metal. At first glance, it looks like a simple design, but sharp-eyed viewers noticed it resembles two upside-down Nike swooshes placed together. It was intentional, a hidden modern reference placed inside a medieval world. The joke fits the film's style perfectly, where knights fight to rock music and crowds behave like modern sports fans. A subtle brand-inspired symbol feels right at home in that playful mix of eras. Things became even funnier in post-production when the filmmakers realized they needed permission to use the design. Instead of objecting, Nike executives reportedly found the reference amusing and allowed it to stay. The connection got an extra layer of irony when people pointed out that Nike's co-founder was named Phil Knight. That coincidence made the moment even more fitting. A knight wearing armor marked with a Nike-like symbol in a movie literally titled A Knight's Tale. What began as a small visual gag ended up as one of the most unexpected examples of accidental product humor in film. Sometimes the best jokes are the ones hidden in plain sight. Number 9. The cast's 2-week pub crawl. One reason the friendships in A Knight's Tale feel so natural is that many of them were real. Before filming officially began, several cast members arrived early in Prague. and that extra time quickly turned into an unexpected bonding experience that shaped their on-screen chemistry. Director Brian Helgeland was already in the Czech Republic when Heath Ledger showed up ahead of schedule. After realizing how affordable life in Prague was, Ledger encouraged others to join early. Mark Addy and Alan Tudyk soon followed, expecting weeks of training before production. In reality, preparation took far less time than expected. While there was some horseback riding and combat training, much of their time was spent simply exploring the city together. Prague's nightlife, cheap beer, and lively streets made it easy for the cast to spend long nights out together. They joked later that they learned the basics of fighting quickly, then spent most of their time in pubs, restaurants, and wandering through the city. Those shared experiences turned co-workers into genuine friends long before filming began. That real connection carried into the movie. The group's chemistry, as William, Roland, Watt, and Chaucer, feel authentic because the actors had already built strong friendships off-screen. Their humor and camaraderie weren't just performed, they were lived. Number 8. The 4-Minute Gamble. Some of the most memorable scenes in A Knight's Tale came from necessity rather than planning. One example is the emotional church confrontation between William and Jocelyn, a scene that blends romance, tension, and heartbreak. What audiences don't realize is that filming it was a major production gamble. The church set was extremely expensive to operate, reportedly costing over $100,000 per day. With the schedule already behind, every extra hour meant serious budget pressure. Normally, a scene like this would be shot with multiple angles, close-ups, and reaction coverage for editing flexibility. Instead, director Brian Helgeland made a risky choice. He decided to film the entire conversation in one continuous take. This meant everything had to work in real time without breaks or safety edits. Heath Ledger and Shannon Sossamon rehearsed extensively to perfect timing, movement, and emotional flow. The camera moves through the space with them, capturing the conversation as a single, uninterrupted moment. When filming began, the gamble paid off. The take preserved the emotional buildup without interruption and helped save both time and money. The studio initially questioned the lack of traditional coverage, but Helgeland defended the decision by pointing to the efficiency and impact of the result. What began as a budget-driven compromise turned into one of the film's most elegant scenes, proving that limitations can sometimes lead to stronger creative choices. Number 7. Spaghetti saved the movie. The jousting scenes in A Knight's Tale are filled with exploding lances, flying wood, and intense collisions that feel surprisingly real. One of the most memorable effects came from an unexpectedly simple source: uncooked spaghetti. Early on, the filmmakers considered using CGI to create the shattered lance impacts, but in the early 2000s, visual effects couldn't convincingly capture fast, chaotic bursts of splintering wood. The results often looked too artificial and lacked the raw energy the scenes needed. Because of that, the team switched to practical effects. The lances were built from lightweight balsa wood, so they would break easily and safely on impact. However, they still needed something to sell the illusion of sharp fragments exploding outward when the weapons shattered. Their solution was surprisingly low-tech but effective: dry spaghetti placed inside the hollow sections of the lances. When the wood broke on impact, the spaghetti snapped into pieces and scattered through the air like realistic wooden splinters on camera. The effect worked so well that it became a defining part of the film's visual style, helping the jousting feel more physical, grounded, and energetic. It also reinforced the movie's commitment to practical filmmaking whenever possible. Years later, those explosive impacts remain one of the most recognizable and beloved details of the film. Number 6. The jousting accident they kept. The jousting sequences in A Knight's Tale were carefully staged with experienced stunt performers and strict safety measures, but accidents still happened. One incident became so memorable it was kept in the final cut. During a high-speed tournament scene, a stunt rider was hit when part of a lance struck his head during a collision. Filming stopped immediately as the crew checked on him. Thankfully, he was not seriously injured and recovered after being examined by the production's medical team. When the filmmakers reviewed the footage, they realized the moment looked strikingly authentic. The timing, impact, and reaction added realism that would have been hard to recreate safely. Because the rider was okay, they decided to keep it in the film. This reflected the movie's preference for practical stunts over heavy visual effects. In hindsight, the accidental hit became part of what made the jousting scenes feel so grounded and intense, adding to the film's lasting impact. Number 5. The 4 men who could really joust. The jousting scenes in A Knight's Tale feel authentic because the filmmakers insisted on using real riders for as much of the action as possible. That decision created an unexpected problem. Professional jousting is extremely rare, and finding people skilled in horses, armor, and full-speed lance combat was far harder than expected. When production searched for performers, they mostly found riders from Renaissance fairs and historical reenactment groups. These weren't traditional actors, but specialists who had spent years practicing a sport most people only see in staged events. The production brought several of these jousters on board to help stage the tournament sequences. Their expertise in controlling horses at speed, handling lances safely, and executing precise maneuvers gave the scenes a grounded realism that fit the film's stylized tone. Because there were so few qualified riders, one stunt performer even played multiple knights throughout the film. By changing armor, colors, and positioning, the same person could appear as different competitors without most viewers noticing. This practical approach helped the action feel believable, without relying heavily on digital effects. Real riders performing real stunts gave the jousts their energy and weight. In the end, the film worked because it blended fantasy storytelling with genuine skill from a small group of specialists. Number 4. Heath Ledger's quiet act of kindness. Movie sets are often remembered for what appears on screen, but some of the most meaningful moments happen off-camera. During the production of A Knight's Tale, one such moment revealed a quieter side of Heath Ledger that many people only heard about years later. While filming in Prague, Alan Tudyk received news that a close friend had died unexpectedly. Being far from home made the loss harder, and he struggled to continue working while grieving. Heath Ledger and co-star Heather Graham supported him, spending time with him, checking in, and making sure he wasn't alone. It wasn't for publicity, just care for a colleague. Tudyk later said those gestures meant a great deal and helped him through one of the hardest periods of his life. The experience reflected how Ledger was often described by co-workers, not just talented, but genuinely kind and empathetic. It remained a private moment that stayed with those involved long after filming ended. Number 3. The fake critic scandal. Most behind-the-scenes stories from A Knight's Tale involve casting or production details, but this one became a major Hollywood controversy tied to Sony Pictures' marketing practices. In the early 2000s, Sony aggressively promoted several films, including A Knight's Tale, by using fabricated critic quotes in advertisements to make them appear more critically acclaimed than they were. The controversy centered on a fictional critic named David Manning, created by Sony's marketing team. His glowing reviews were inserted into promotional materials, complete with fake publication details, and used to boost ticket sales across multiple releases. For a time, the strategy seemed effective because audiences trusted the endorsements and assumed they came from real reviewers. Eventually, investigative journalists discovered that David Manning did not exist and that the reviews had been entirely invented by the studio. The revelation sparked a major scandal, triggering media backlash, regulatory scrutiny, and accusations of misleading consumers. Sony later admitted the deception, settled a related lawsuit, and the case became one of Hollywood's most infamous advertising controversies. While A Knight's Tale was only one of several films involved, it remains a lasting example of deceptive marketing in the film industry. Number 2. The party guest who became a star. Hollywood casting stories usually involve agents, auditions, and long resumes. Shannon Sossamon's path to A Knight's Tale was nothing like that. Before playing Jocelyn, she wasn't a full-time actress with years of experience. She was discovered at a birthday party in Los Angeles. A casting director noticed her striking look and natural presence. At the time, Sossamon was working as a model and DJ with only a few small acting credits and very little formal training. Even so, she stood out. She had an unconventional energy that made people pay attention, and she was invited to audition for A Knight's Tale. The competition was intense, with experienced actresses and established names in the running. Many seemed like safer studio choices, but during auditions, Sossamon kept impressing the filmmakers. Director Brian Helgeland felt she brought something different to Jocelyn: confidence, mystery, and independence that fit his vision of the character. Against the odds, she won the role. A chance encounter at a party turned into a leading part opposite Heath Ledger in a major studio film. The movie became her breakout moment and introduced her to global audiences. Looking back, it remains one of Hollywood's most unlikely casting stories, where an unexpected discovery completely changed a career overnight. And perhaps the most surprising career twist belonged to someone audiences barely noticed at the time. Number 1. The supporting actress who became an Oscar nominee. When A Knight's Tale premiered in 2001, attention focused on Heath Ledger and the leads. Few noticed Bérénice Bejo, a young French actress making her American debut as Christiana, one of Jocelyn's attendants. Few noticed Bérénice Bejo, a young French actress making her American debut as Christiana, one of Jocelyn's attendants. At the time, she was little known outside France and unlikely to expect this brief role would shape her future career path. After the film, Bejo built her career in French and international cinema, gaining steady recognition for her versatility and screen presence. Her breakthrough came with The Artist, 2011, a silent film that became a global phenomenon. Her performance earned widespread praise and led to major awards and an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. The nomination elevated her career and introduced her to global audiences. Looking back, her small role in A Knight's Tale feels like an early glimpse of future success. It shows how unnoticed beginnings can lead to remarkable careers. At the time of filming, there was no indication that she would later become one of the most respected international actresses of her generation. Her journey from minor supporting role to global recognition reflects the unpredictable nature of film careers and the way talent can emerge unexpectedly. Audiences rediscovered her early appearance. From casting battles and studio disagreements to dangerous stunts, hidden jokes, and a sequel that never happened, A Knight's Tale had a far more chaotic journey than most fans ever realized. Somehow, all of those unexpected moments came together to create one of the most unique medieval movies ever made. Which fact surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch the next video on your screen for more incredible movie secrets and behind-the-scenes stories.